Alright, so today's video is going to be my favorite eyeshadow palettes and singles for 2017. Some of these are a little bit newer to me, some of them I have had for a long time, and they are staples in my collection. So I've already applied eyeshadow, obviously, and as I said in my last video, because there are a lot of products that I want to talk about, I didn't want to do a tutorial and show you me applying this, although this was very, very easy, and if you do want to see a tutorial on it, let me know in the comments below and I'd be happy to recreate it. And I'm not going to give price points and grams and ingredient information and all that kind of stuff. I'm just going to jump into it and show you what I like. As per usual, there really is no rhyme or reason in terms of the order in which I'm showing them to you. I haven't ranked them. I don't know that I can rank eyeshadow palettes in terms of what's my absolute favorite, because it really depends on what I'm wearing, where I'm going, how I'm feeling that day. There are so many factors that go into determining what I reach for on any given day that I can't possibly rank them for you. But let's jump into it and get through this. So one that it's been kicking around forever. If you haven't heard of the Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette, I would be very surprised because it has been out for years. It's a good collection of shades, a good mix of mattes and shimmer shadows. There's that random purple that works its way into like basically every Too Faced palette. It's not my favorite in the palette, but it's certainly not terrible. It does perform well. It's just this random pop. This is the palette that I reach for when I'm short on time. I don't want to fuss around with stuff. I just want to put something on my eyeballs, look more polished than I do when I wake up in the morning, and get out the door. These shadows are consistent. They're not fussy at all. They blend really well. There's good pigmentation. There's certain that are kind of duds, like this pink is not really anything that I ever reach for. But aside from that, like if I just want neutral shadows, there it is. They all complement each other really well. Throw it on my face, out the door I go. Also, it smells heavenly. On the polar opposite end of the spectrum, there's the Subculture palette. This thing is a fussy little lady. However, given the shade selection, she's worth the effort. These colors they scream fall winter to me. They look cozy. They speak to my soul. I love the shade selection in here. They're so rich and different. You don't see these in a lot of palettes. I love New Wave. I love All Star. I love Destiny. Like they are super pigmented. They are tricky to work with, but like look at the color payoff on just a finger swatch on an unprimed arm. They are worth it. My only recommendation with this is to have lots of time and just have patience. Work a little bit at a time, really spend time blending, layer up the shades. They will build up to whatever opacity you want, but if you go in there and think you can just slap it on one and done, you're going to get frustrated with it because it is going to create fallout. It's going to be patchy. It's not going to look great, but little by little, take your time with it and you're going to get an amazing eye look out of it. The only shade in here that I think is kind of misplaced is Cube. It looks white in the pan, but it's got a very strong sort of pink duochrome effect to it. It doesn't really jive with the rest of them, so word to the wise, it's not really an inner corner highlight unless you've thought that through in advance. The first time I used this palette, I slapped that on and I'd been using, like the olive green tones and the mustard and all that, and it just looked ridiculous. So that's my only complaint about this palette. With respect to Electric and Adorned, these are, well, and Cube as well if you're going to use it, these are the sort of metallic foiled shadows in here. I just find they work best with the finger. I've tried using a flat brush, I've tried using a dense shader brush, and they just don't have the impact that I want, but just go in with a finger, treat them like a ColourPop shadow, and you're good to go. The next collection of palettes shouldn't really come as a surprise given that I did dedicated reviews to each one in the collection, but it's the Huda Beauty mini palettes here, the Obsession series. Because I've done tutorials using each one of these, and I've done with some of the other shadows that I'm going to talk about, I'm not going to link them all below. I'm not going to put them in the cards, but like I said, I did do dedicated reviews to each one of these palettes, and if you go to my YouTube page and look under videos, you will find them. They are fairly recent. I did them towards, I guess, the end of November of this year, 2017, if somebody's watching this in the future. That just sounds bizarre, but you never know. They are fantastic. So I'll do a very quick overview. This is the Smoky Obsessions. The shadows perform beautifully in all of these palettes. The mattes are gorgeous. This black is super pigmented. The metallics are beautiful. You can apply them with a brush. You can apply them with your finger. And the shade selection in each one of these palettes is just very well thought out. There's a lot of diversity for only having 9 pans. This is the Mauve Obsessions. There's a good mix of matte and shimmers, with the exception of the warm browns. This one only has one shimmer shade, which is that gold in the middle, but it works so well with any of the mattes that I have no complaints about that. With each of them, I find I have to reach for an inner corner highlight shade, but I typically just use whatever highlighter I'm using on my face that day. It's not a gripe. I have no issues with that. They're just beautiful, beautiful palettes, and at 35 Canadian each, they're not going to break the bank really, and obviously the bright colored one is really fun as well. And for bright colors, they perform amazingly. The pigmentation is there without producing a ton of fallout and without getting muddy or patchy or anything like that. They blend beautifully. I really can't recommend these enough. If you want more information on all of them, check out my videos, please. I mentioned this little palette in a video, one of my first videos, I think, probably the other palette tag, the other palette challenge tag video that I did. That's where I mentioned this. And this is the Tardis Pro to Go, and it's just another little tiny palette here, but very well thought out and very well curated. You have 3 matte shades and 3 more metallic shades, and they all work really well together, and it's just, this is very beginner friendly. You don't get overwhelmed with the choices. There's no stark black to worry about. The deepest you're going to get is sort of, I would call it more of a medium brown. It's not really a dark brown, but it's dark enough to add dimension to the lids, and I love this little palette. It was 33, I believe, Canadian, and it came with like a little mini mascara. So this, if you're looking for a last minute gift for a makeup newbie or even just a makeup lover, I would highly recommend this because it is just so easy to use and is definitely an everyday kind of palette. In terms of single shadows, again, this is one that probably wouldn't come as any surprise, especially if you do follow me on Instagram. It's from ColourPop, and it's the shade I Heart This. It's one of their Super Shock shadows, and it's just like a metallic taupe. And it's very sparkly without being glittery. It lasts all day without creasing. It just helps to brighten up the eyes, and it's a perfect one and done shade. I will apply this with my finger, just swipe it across. I'll usually throw something in the crease just to, create a little bit more depth to the look, but that's basically it. Like the shade that I'll put in the crease, I'll just run along the lower lash line. Typically with this, because it is so shimmery and bright, I don't even bother putting eyeliner on. I just put some mascara on and out the door I go. And it's a fantastic little shadow for $5. Another fairly new palette that I love is the Just Peachy Mattes from Too Faced. There are the shadows in there. They are all matte, and I don't always like a completely matte look. So oftentimes with this, when I'm looking for something for on the lid to bring a little bit of sparkle to it. I will reach for my Modern Renaissance palette from Anastasia. I find the shades in there are very complementary to the shades in here. They have the same sort of warm, peachy, reddish, pink thing going on. And I find especially the shade Vermeer works so well with all of these shadows, and I'll just put that on the lid to bring a little bit of brightness to it. But these mattes blend beautifully. They're not patchy, and they work really well together. So when I look at the palette, like I can find, there they are there, I can find numerous options for it, and it can be, you know, super complicated and have 5 or 6 colors in there, or it can just be 2 or 3 to get an eye look out of. Also, it smells divine. I'm not big on the sweet peach, but this one, A1. All right, I have 2 more to talk about. One is a workhorse of my collection. I have talked about it before. It's the Shade and Light Eye Contour Palette from Kat Von D. This is just, you know, if ever there was a palette that I would actually consider to be a necessity, this really is it. You have neutrals, you have cools, you have warm toned browns. All of them are excellent for blending out other shadows. So if you have palettes that aren't standalone palettes, for example, the Tarte foiled finger paints in the back, there are no matte shades in that for blending. Or if you have any other palette that is just chock full of metallic or shimmer shadows, this is just a great one to reach for, and because it has the different tones in it, you can find something that will work with anything. There's one there. So they are just very nicely pigmented, and like I said, they blend beautifully. So this really is a workhorse for me. I don't tend to just use this for eye looks, although you could. They are quite comprehensive shades, and they're, you know, easily categorized here, so you know just by looking at it what works well with each other. But again, for me, I don't tend to gravitate towards pure matte looks. I do like something shimmery in there. But on days where I am just throwing something in the crease, throwing on some mascara, and going about my day, this is just an easy one. I have to just throw that one into the crease there. That's the shade Lazarus. Or sometimes something like this, it's a little bit deeper. It's just a lovely palette. There's a reason everybody talks about this one. And I don't think that I can really round out a list of favorite eyeshadows without giving a mention to Makeup Geek. There's a double-sided palette that I have, so I have all of my shimmers and foils on one side. This is the shade that I have on my lids today. And then I have my collection of matte shadows on the back, and I have used Corrupt for the black on my eyes, and then a mix of Barcelona Beach and Beaches and Cream for blending out and transition. They're wonderful. I did do a dedicated video on my collection, including swatches of all the shades that are in here, and a tutorial on an eye look that I did using these. And at $6 a pan, the quality that you're receiving for that price is mind-blowing. The owner, Marlena, is very dedicated to keeping her price points down without sacrificing on quality, and she has absolutely nailed it. So there are a gajillion, I believe is the actual quantifiable number of shades to choose from, and there's something for everybody. Check out their website. The swatch pictures that they have on their website are very helpful, and they are really true to what arrives and how they actually perform in real life. So that brings this video to an end, guys. Again, thank you for taking the time to watch. I really do appreciate it. As always, I would love to hear your recommendations down in the comments below of any palettes that you have really just adored this year or any year. Let me know. We can all learn from each other, and I'm always open for product recommendations. So I will see you in my next video. Until then, just be a decent human being. Bye for now, guys.